Let me just click that. You know that human relations issues and working with diverse organizations is very important to me. In the first couple of months of my administration, I've met, I can't tell you how many different groups of social service agencies I've met with, all who are eager to work with the community to let me know what services they provide and how they can help. And they just want to make sure that they're on my radar screen. And I've worked hard to do that. I continue to meet with people and reach out to different members of the community. We had a very successful breakfast last Saturday with the Brazilian community. We spent a couple of hours with a number of pastors from various Brazilian churches discussing issues related to that community and what the city can do for them, provide services for them. We're working very hard to get diverse people in the administration. Very successful in hiring Kez Franca, who speaks multiple languages, and she comes to us from as a wraparound coordinator from the public school department. My next priority is to fill a vacant position of the diversity director. That's an important position to fill. We want to make sure we get the right person for it. We're in the process of reviewing the job description to make sure that what that person does is relevant to the issues with city government and will be very productive in whatever they do. And I'm reaching out to different members of the community to get input on the job description. I want to make sure that we have the right description and before we hire somebody. And I intend to hire someone in the near future, but I want to make sure we do it the right way because that's a very important position.
What do you mean when you say do it the right way? Now, is this the diversity, equity, and inclusion officer?
Yes,
position?
yeah. And as you know, Mayor Spicer, at the beginning of her administration, created that position, and City Council eventually voted to approve it. And she developed a job description that I want to review before I hire somebody to fill that role. And I want to make sure that the work that that person does is going to be productive and useful. And not saying that the previous person in that role wasn't, but I just want to make sure that whoever joins my administration is going to be working with us as a team so that we can support each other and make sure that we do what we should be doing to promote diversity in the city's workforce. I think the way the job description was written, it was mainly an internal position to make sure that city government hires diverse people. And I'm thinking that we may want to expand that a little bit to work beyond the four corners of city government and get out into the community and help the community with diversity issues as well. But that's what I want input from, to talk to different people who have had experience in this role and see if we're about to do it the right way.
Go ahead, Tracey.
I just wanted to say that I did have a question, but I wanted to say that Ala, in that position, she did a lot of getting people in the community, people of color, people in the community, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different neighborhoods into positions in city government that were not employees, residents.
I'm sorry, Tracey, let me interrupt you for a minute. Could you just introduce yourself to those who may not know you, please?
Okay, I'm Tracey Bryant. I am the Framingham City Councilor from District 9. So that is who I am. And then The question I had was, you said that you were speaking to various members of the community or about this position, and I think you did so in terms of the intermediate staff or whatever. So who have you spoken to, or what groups are you speaking to about the diversity position?
Well, I don't want to really get into that, Tracy. And just as a correction, Ala was not the diversity director. She had a
No, she
different
was-
role in the administration.
Right,
Right,
So I
she
don't
was
want to
the
confuse what Ala
participation
did
officer.
with the,
I'm sorry, she was the participation officer.
Right.
I'm sorry, but yes, so.
you know,
she
and
did
I'd
do
also
a lot.
like to know, BB, what the Human Relations Commission sees as a role for this person, and give me some advice on it from your commission's point of view. I think that's important for you to have a say in what this person should be doing.
It's interesting that you say that. It's because when Maritza Barrows, Dr. Barrows was with us, was with the city, we as a commission had decided that we would try and filter anything that came into us through the diversity, equity, and inclusion officer, and she would take lead on that. In fact, Maritza kept us abreast of projects going on with the city, events. She let us know where we could be supportive. So we were trying to form subcommittees to help with different things that were going on. The Pride celebrations. There was some reporting on issues and how we could help with that. Speaking of which, we've been offered an email finally for the commission. However, how do we deal with the requests that come in from the city? Who do we filter it out to? Would it now go to the DEI officer, or would it be going to Keziah now? So that was something that we want to ask you. Who are we going to be reporting to when we want, who do we send something up to? Should we get a request from the public? Yes, Keziah.
So typically I will be kind of like the liaison for the boards and commissions.
Mhm.
So it would come through me. And then once the board, once the DI director comes on board, you know, if there's projects that want to filter off to you guys, like you saying that Dr. Barrows also did, we can continue that partnership. But yes, anything would filter through me. So I
Thank
don't
you
know
for
if
that.
that's how Ala had it prior, but
Right. We
yeah.
would report. Actually, what was happening is it would go through the city, and then Alla would filter it to us
Okay.
afterwards. So if someone, if a member of the public wanted to speak with us and had a concern, they would email Alla. Alla would then email us, and then we would discuss it at a commission meeting. We didn't get very many of those after a while. Things, I did just, not that anything changed. I think that just, there weren't a lot of requests coming in. But now with this new email, as we get any requests from the public, it'd be nice to know who our liaison is. So we would still continue to send it to you and then say,
Correct.
hey, well, we think this is for DEI. Can you filter it? Or ask you a question. Is that how we go ask you? No,
Correct.
who would we work
Yep.
with to get this done? Okay, good. That was
Yeah.
that's good to know, because since Alla's been gone and then now Maritza, we are kind
Yes,
of at
I'm
a
sure.
standstill.
Yeah.
We've lost great, parts of our team.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is what, week 3 for me, I think. And that's, Susan and Mayor on here, they know that boards and commissions has kind of been the project that I've been kind of working on and just revamping and trying to, get things moving again. Because as you say, like Ala, she's been out since October. So everything's been kind of at a standstill. So yeah, I'll put my email in the chat, and then feel free, you guys can always reach out to me, and we can filter it that way.
Thanks, Keziah. I have one more question, and then I'm going to have Renee go next. We were made aware of goings on in the city by Maritza, mostly, at least as far as it pertained to the commission and how we could be helpful. how do we stay connected with things that relate to human relations? Is there an email list that we're supposed to be on? I know most of us as residents, we get the city emails. There's a meeting happening or something like that. But like different projects and things going on, reports from your transition subcommittees and stuff. How do we stay informed as a commission?
Well, one
How
of
do
the
we
things
get those?
I campaigned on, I'm sure you know, is I want to have an open and transparent administration. I don't want to hide anything. I think all the information should be shared with anyone who's interested in it. And that's how I intend to operate. And the people that are working with me on my team all know that. And once we hire the diversity officer, I think, well, it'll be like an open door to your committee to work with you, and you can have a back and forth anytime you want. I think one of the problems that other committees have experienced is that there hasn't been any support from the administration. A lot of our committees are operating without any backup or any support from the city administration. And it's not fair to them to expect them to do what their responsibilities are and also have to take minutes of the meeting and post meetings and worry about setting up Zoom meetings and everything. And one of the things I want to do is get more help to our committees so they can operate and not have to worry about a lot of the administrative issues. And especially with your committee, with the new DEI officer, that person, I hope, will be working closely with you in coordinating with you. And Kez's role will be to give you further backup and support and send you communications whenever we get something that is appropriate for your committee to see. So it's going to be open and transparent, and it could be, sometimes informal as well as formal. And I don't mind who you talk to, and I don't mind who talks to you. It's more important to get the information flow going so everybody knows what's going on. That's the only way we're going to be able to serve the community, is if everybody knows what's going on and what the plan is. So I don't have any restrictions on who's going to coordinate, who's going to communicate with you or not. It's going to be whatever it needs to be.
I'm glad to hear you say that, Mayor Sisitsky, because that's something we struggle with. Is once upon a time when Bob was chair, he can back this up. We had an administrator, which who kept records of what all it was we were dealing with, and answered phones and emails and such. And we would like to have the funding for that eventually, but we can talk about that at a later date.
Yeah,
I'm going to move on and just make sure everyone gets a chance to talk with you. So Renee?
sure.
I was just coming up from mute. Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Hi.
I'm going to do twofold. First, I'm going to respond to a question that you asked a moment ago. What do we see that role of the DBI officer? And I use, instead of you call it the DI, I like DBIE, because I like it not to be diversity, I like it to be diversity, belonging, inclusion, and equity. And I say that because you can have all the diversity you want. If people don't feel like they're belonging, it doesn't work. So I would just argue that we may want to look at it as a DBIE as opposed to just a diversity and inclusion. But I'm looking for that role to be a lot more comprehensive than simply worrying about staffing. And because I think when people do that, they really short sight diversity. It's a lot more than that. It's dealing with educating current staff, since we are a very multicultural city. It's making sure that everyone on your staff represents and understands how to deal with these multiculturals. It talks about our contracts and our vendors. Are we making sure that where we can, we're putting it out to bid? So that means that sometimes some of the complaints I've heard from the Brazilian community is that the bids are only done in English. And many of them are good tradesmen, but they can't even bid on things because it's not multilingual. So it would be for the diversity officer to look at that. looking at economic empowerment. As you know, our young people are struggling and have gone through a lot with COVID. What are we doing in terms of this summer, working with the major corporations, TJX, Staples, Savonia, that are right here in the Framingham, city of Framingham, not even in the area, but in the city of Framingham, partnering with them to make sure that they're employing our youth. So I see this role of our diversity officer being much more comprehensive than simply worrying about hiring folks that are diverse. So that's to answer your question. But my question to you is, first, congratulations on your election. But I was very, very disturbed. And I don't know how others felt, but I can tell you in the African-American community here in Framingham, we were very disturbed when you put together your transition team. There was a lack on your transition team of people that look like me in your leadership. I'm not saying that they weren't in the subcommittees. And I was most distressed when I saw that Rick Finlay was heading up your diversity and inclusion transition committee. And I say that because we as the commission have already had interactions with Rick. He had to come, he came before us because there was a very ugly incident that occurred at the school department meeting when he was on the school commission. And he came and we basically had to educate him as to what it was, why that wasn't good. And then to see him as the face that you put forward in your transition committee for diversity, I know I personally took it as a slap in the face. And I know that may not be how you intended it, Mayor, but I would not, you want to be transparent. And I want to be transparent with you. I want to let you know that's how I felt as a 25-year resident of Framingham. I'm like, there's so many phenomenal people here in Framingham that could have done that role who did not already have bad will in the African-American community to do that. And so I don't know what was in your thought process, and I would love to understand what it was that made you make that move.
No, I appreciate what you're saying, and if you feel offended, I apologize for that. No intention whatsoever was.
I recognize that.
Yeah.
I don't think you went out to make me feel hurt.
Yeah. Well, and I had some issues putting together a transition committee. I struggled to find people for certain roles on the transition committee. And I reached out to as many people as I knew and try to get people to volunteer to do it. And I relied on other people to also find me volunteers to work on it. And some people were very enthusiastic about it and others not so much. So it was difficult. Some people actually turned me down, and which was kind of disappointing, but it's always a learning experience. And if we learn from our mistakes, we're going to do a lot better in the future. And that's how I see it. Nobody's perfect. And I am always open to advice and listening to people. And that's what I've done all my life. And we learn from it. And if I had to do it over again, I'd certainly do it a little differently and reach out to other groups. So we got some very good information, some very good suggestions in the transition report. I'm still combing through it, reading it and rereading it, and we're trying to decide how much, if or whether or not the whole thing gets distributed publicly, because there's an awful lot of suggestions and recommendations in there that we can't do. Some of them are just impossible to do. And I don't want to get people's hopes up that all these things were recommended to the mayor and people expect the mayor to do everything, because the report was 128 pages long. A lot of people worked very hard on that, and I'm very thankful for that. But as I said, I tried to get a variety of people and backgrounds on it. And I'm sorry if we fell short, but we'll learn from that. And the next time we have to do it, we'll do a better job.
The problem was, it isn't Rick, it's what had happened, that he had already had a bad issue that received a lot of attention. To then put him back in that role it just was like, oh, and
Yeah.
then once we saw that, I can tell you from being a 25-year resident here, and my pastor really well. I go to I'm the chair of our church council at Greater Framingham, and everybody there, we kind of went, okay, he doesn't really care about us. And I know that's not what you meant, Mayor,
Yeah.
but that is, but I would be remiss if I didn't tell you what the word on the street is.
Well, I
and
appreciate
people may
hearing
not
it.
tell you, but I will tell you.
But I'll tell you, Renee, one of my regrets is I didn't hear from you. Why didn't you reach out to me? We could have had a good conversation, and I would have loved to put you on a committee, a transition committee.
I would tell you that would be great. I got a JOBB, not just a JOB. I got a JOBB because I am a CFO, and so I don't necessarily have the time to do it right. But I know a number. If you had reached out, if you had asked my pastor for some names, he'd have rattled off 15 names to you of people that he knows who could do this job. And you know Reverend Lloyd well enough to know he would have given you some names.
I had a couple of Zoom meetings with him since I've been mayor, and we've had some interesting conversations. And as a matter of fact, I asked him to try and recommend people to me that he may know that would be qualified to serve on different committees. And he agreed, but I haven't gotten any names yet. So.
But I know, and I say this to you because a lot of folks around you may just say, yeah, Mayor, yeah. I say it to you because I've lived in Framingham 20 plus years.
Yep.
I'm not going anywhere. I own my home. I am not moving. And I love Framingham. I came here because of the diversity and the richness that it brings to it. And if you can hear my accent, I'm a New Yorker. And I wanted something as close to being New York as I could, because in New York, the only color we know is green. And that's how we rate things from a money perspective. So I wanted to live somewhere where there would be folks that were of Asian descent, folks that were Brazilian, folks that were Latino. Framingham has 7 temples. I mean, so I wanted that richness. So I wanted to succeed. And I would offer that you may want to consider for the community, considering doing a town hall meeting where, and if you ask Reverend Lloyd, he would volunteer GFCC for a town hall meeting where you could just get to listen to some of the issues that people have, whether it be housing, whether it be economic. COVID has put a strain on a lot of families. Here at GFCC, we fed 60 families for an entire year with fresh food every other week, who otherwise wouldn't have had fresh food. There is so much of that need here in Framingham that, that we want to make sure you hear about.
No, I hear what you're saying, and that's a good suggestion, and it's one that we'll consider because we want to hear from everybody.
But I'm going to let Michael go because
thank you for recommending that.
Before
Michael's hand is up. Go ahead.
Before Michael goes, I'd like to, because the question is relevant, we have a question from the public, and I'm going to throw it in now because it relates to what I want to ask. So I'm not sure if you were aware of what the issue was with Ricky Finlay, where he did not understand why there was a need for diversity and had an outburst at a public meeting stating, "I'm proud to be white. What's all this talk about diversity?" You've been interviewed before becoming mayor, and you have said yourself that you don't think that race is a factor in hiring and in government. So I'd like to know what your thoughts are on that now, and how do you feel? Did you know about the incident with Ricky first? And if not, even if you have, how has Ricky grown since that incident? What racial equity trainings has Ricky attended? Has your administration attended? And how do you feel about race being a factor
First of all,
promoting diversity?
Okay. Ricky's not a member of my administration. He's a member of the school committee. I don't know what Ricky has done. I don't know too many details of that incident.
He is chair of your diversity, equity, and inclusion transition subcommittee.
You said, what is he,
I'm asking, since the incident with Ricky, how has he grown, and what makes you feel confident that he's fit to lead this DEI transition subcommittee
Well,
and be part of your
that,
administration?
first of all, that was a very temporary role with a number of people on that committee. He was only one member of the committee. The committee doesn't exist anymore, as far as I know. And do you know something I don't know?
The committee doesn't exist, so I personally and with another group, we reached out and we were told to wait until the reports came back from your transition subcommittees, and he was the chair at the time. At the time when your subcommittees were announced, Ricky was chair of the Diversity, Equity, and
That's
Inclusion
correct. Yeah,
Transition Subcommittee.
yeah.
So I'm asking you, why did you feel he was fit for that, given his history with issues with diversity? And I'd also like to know what your take after this report, and for the short amount of time you've been in, do you still think race is not a factor in government?
You're taking it out of context of what I said when I made the comment that race is not a factor, because that was in a political context that people were saying that I was racist. As a matter of fact, Mayor Spicer has accused me of being a racist, and I took a lot of umbrage at that because it's not true. And that's why I said in the political context that race is not a factor in the race for mayor. There were a lot of other issues that pertain to her ability to run the city as a mayor. And I don't want to rehash this whole thing. And I think we're going down a rabbit hole when you start bringing up these issues. And I'd like to move
Don't
on to a
misunderstand me.
more
Don't
productive
misunderstand me.
conversation.
I'm not trying to address you being called a racist. In fact, I didn't know anything about that. But
Well, that's the
when
fact.
in the race for mayor and in during our political season, you made a statement that race was not a factor in politics. Do you still feel that way? And if you do, how can you feel that way and also feel that you are equipped with that thinking to provide resources to a very diverse city, to provide supports
You're
and
changing
leadership?
the whole context of what I said, and
Because
you're misinterpreting what I said, or you don't want to interpret what I said correctly. And I don't want to go there.
No, no,
That's
no.
not why
I
I
don't want to
joined your
accuse you
meeting.
of anything. What I'm trying to ask is, I know where you started, and I want to know where you are now. Ricky Finlay made a very public outburst about diversity,
Listen,
and you put him on a committee leading diversity. You said race is not a factor. Where are you now? What do you think about that now?
but race being not a factor,
About race being a factor in human relations and diversity, equity, and inclusion.
that's not what the issue was. I'm explaining to you that race was not a factor in the campaign for mayor, because I was accused of being racist, and I'm not a racist. And I insisted that race was not a factor. It had nothing to do with my campaign. It was not an issue in my campaign. It was an issue from the other side. And I still feel that way. But I was elected mayor by 68% of the voters in Framingham. And I'm going to serve 100% of the people that live in Framingham. And race is not a factor
You don't
in
have to
terms of
further
my
explain that.
politics.
Thank you for clarifying your what you said about race not being. Now tell me, did you know about did you select Ricky for the chair
you know
as
what,
chair?
Madam Chair, I think we need to move on from
Excuse
this
me, Dana.
point.
Excuse me, Dana.
I think this is
Excuse me, Dana.
appropriate line
I'm
of questioning.
reclaiming my time. I'd like to finish. Thank you. Um, the community has asked. The question is here. They want to know what racial equity trainings are your administration participating in, and how are you addressing your own blind spots as a leader in the city like Framingham? And this question is coming from a community group who also has concerns about Ricky's placement
Well,
in leadership.
I don't know.
DEI.
I've talked to dozens and dozens of community groups, and I've never heard that raised before. I don't know who you're referring to. And let me just
This
say
question
something.
came from Framingham Families for Racial Equity and Education,
Okay.
who requested
I
a
don't
meeting
even,
with
I'm
you.
not even aware of that committee. So I'd like to meet that committee and discuss it with them. But I don't want to spend my whole night arguing with you over Ricky Finlay. I think there's other things that we should be talking about, and I hope there is. Otherwise, we're just spinning our wheels
Mayor,
here.
we haven't come to put you on to make you defensive. These are relevant questions as they pertain to human relations, and the exact question is, can you please discuss what racial equity trainings you and your administration are participating in, and how are you addressing your own blind spots as a leader in a city like Framingham? That question is from
Well,
the public,
you're
because we
presuming I
invited you
have,
here tonight to discuss human relations, how we can work with you, and how you plan to work in human relations and DEI. You said you want to revamp the DEI position and make sure they're doing it right. What is doing it right to you? These are some of the issues that we face, and we want to know how you're going to deal with things like this. If you want to talk about that later and maybe get back to us, that's okay too, but this is relevant to the commission and
first of all,
your job and from the public.
all right, BB, first of all, this discussion wasn't even on your agenda. You invited me to come to your meeting to talk to you, but you didn't even put it on the agenda.
We
So
put out
I
a
don't
general
know.
agenda as
I'm sorry?
we're having issues with posting agendas, so we put a general agenda out for 3 months.
Well, I mean, that borders on violation of the open meeting law, but I don't even want to go to there. Because under the open meeting law, the public, meaning everybody who wants to watch your meeting and wants to see what's going on, has a right to know what you're going to discuss and what you're going to talk about. So at the very least, your agenda should have mentioned that I was invited to your meeting, that I was going to be a guest at your meeting. That isn't even on your agenda.
It's
So
actually not an open meeting law violation, but we have only put out a general agenda for the next
well,
3 months
that's not
to
right.
secure our Zooms.
That's inappropriate. And I would suggest that you do a better job of posting your agenda, what you're going to talk about.
Well,
Can I do this, BB, as the
Yeah.
vice chair?
yeah.
Can I move to Michael, because he's had his hand up for a while, and let Michael ask the mayor the question that he had? Can we do that? And
Yeah,
we can then come back to the administrative piece. And part of that, Mayor, is why we really need an assistant to help us in terms of getting these Zooms and the posting and the meeting notices.
I agree 100%.
You know, but I'm gonna move, let's move to Michael.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for taking the time tonight to speak with us. I wanted to go back quickly to the conversation about the diversity, equity, and inclusion position that is looking to be filled, that you're looking to revamp. I know a question was asked earlier about the folks with whom you plan to kind of vet the position description with and to look for some suggestions. I know you said you didn't want to get into it, but I feel like this commission has a compelling interest to have an understanding about the folks you're trying to speak with about this. And I also think, and I appreciate extending the opportunity for the commission to have an opportunity to have our feedback heard around that position. So I'm curious if you could elaborate a little bit on who you intend to be given this description to vet a little bit further. And also, what is your timeline for intending to get this position posted and hired, hopefully?
Good question. I want to get as much input as possible from as many people as possible in the community on their thoughts about the DEI position. And that's why I suggested that your commission may want to give me some advice. This isn't the only opportunity for you to talk to me tonight. I'm available at any time. Any individual members of the committee want to meet with me, you want to invite me back, I'll be happy to come back. I would ask you if you want me to come back, that you give me an idea what you want to talk about. I don't want to be blindsided by people when I get invited to a committee. But I'm certainly willing to listen to any suggestions you might have about this job. Maybe after we hear from a lot of people, including you, we might not make any changes to the job description. But I think that's got to be on the table so that everybody has a say in it. And as far as the timeline, once we can pin down the job description, we will advertise it, and we will seek candidates to apply for this job.
Right, I appreciate that. I think what I'm trying to get at is if you have some specific groups already in mind that you want to give this position
Not
to.
necessarily. No, not necessarily.
Okay, so that I suppose my kind of last follow-up question is: are you open to this commission giving you recommendations of folks in the community with whom you should speak? Because I think this commission is the ones who are most plugged in to
Any suggestion or advice, any suggestion or advice you can give me would be very welcome.
Yeah. Mayor already said that, Michael, but that's
Okay,
that's
Susan, you're next.
Well, just before Susan goes, BB, one question. I want to clarify, Mr. Mayor, since I sent the letter and the invitation to come to speak. It did say and I wrote the letter, so I know what I asked. And in my letter, I asked for you to come so we understood the role that you saw human relations playing in Framingham, what we could do to support the human relations, and how your perspective on diversity. And I know that was what was in the letter. So I want to be honest to this group. We were very upfront with, at least I know what I wrote in the letter. Now, you may not have gotten all of that, but that's what I put in the email that I sent.
Yeah, I didn't see Ricky Finley's name mentioned in the letter at all, or questions about Ricky Finley. I would have done some research and be better prepared to answer that question.
And my question, and the reason I brought Rick Finley up is I said how I was hurt when I saw his name, since he had already come to the commission based off of what I thought was a very ugly incident that occurred.
Why didn't I hear from you? Why didn't I hear from you? If you were so upset, you know how to get a hold of me. I'm a public figure. I would have expected someone that it was upset with that to reach out to me and let me know, instead of letting it fester.
Touche, going forward, I will definitely do that. I'll take good note of that. I will, and I also want to let you know, we are talking about the role of the DBIE, what we see the DBIE person doing. And we're trying to keep it to that, but I don't want to steal from Susan. Susan's had her hand up for a while.
Well, thank you, everybody. I'm the chief of staff for the mayor and work directly with Kez and would work directly with the DEI director. I just want to talk a little bit about more about Michael's question. So there are people in the community, but there's also people who are outside of our community, but have a sense of how the DEI role can be really successful. Just overall, like what are the elements that make it successful? The kind of people I've spoken with is Gamal Di Cavallo, who works at the Equity Center at Wayside Youth and Family Services. We also have put together, with the help of the Massachusetts Nonprofit Network, a list of 12 DEI directors at major nonprofits in Massachusetts. And I know municipal is a little bit different, but we're trying to figure out what makes them so effective. We're worried about barriers to success. One of the things that we talked a lot about today, Kez and the mayor and I, is whatever the job description does become, we want to make sure that there's a shared understanding in the city of what that is. I personally felt that Dr. Barros was in a tricky position because I think there was different understanding among different people on what her role was. So if she was working internally, people thought, why isn't she external? If she's external, why isn't she internal? And I think that we have to be really mindful of what a tough position that was for her. Other folks, you guys might know that the DEI director in Worcester just resigned. That's the kind of person I'd love to have their take on it. Like, what do you think is the best way that this person can kind of balance this internal and external? And as I put in the chat, one thing this person does is in charge of all equity trainings. So if you're going to be in charge of all equity trainings and in some cases deliver the training, how much time does that leave for you to be out in the community? Now, Kez is always going to be out in the community as well, but so how does that work? So those are the kinds of questions we're having, conversations we want to have, but they're not all necessarily within Framingham. But to, I think it was Renee's or BB's point, yeah, we would love to hear from you guys who we should be talking to. Not just the obvious names, but other names. And just finally, the mayor referred to when we met with about 40 Brazilian pastors on Saturday, and they were people who were so engaged in the Brazilian community, but they weren't the usual names that come up. And we got so many different perspectives that we wouldn't if we'd just gone to some of the usual names. So we're looking for anything from you guys. Tomorrow, Kaz and I are meeting with the Human Resources Director who has led some of these sorts of searches and other jobs. And we want her to look at our thoughts, inform our thoughts, and give us that timeline. So Michael, to your point, like, how much time is the right amount of time? You know, how many different people do we have to listen to outside the community as opposed to inside the community, and get that timeline going? Sorry, that was a long answer, but I was just trying to like pick up all the different pieces that have been mentioned.
Susan, can I
We
just
appreciate you.
piggyback on that piece for a moment? I would hope that as the mayor, you and the mayor come together, that you would have a representative from this committee as part of the interview team. You know, we bring a lot of diversity on the team, and Michael's asking that, and he's being very humble, but he directs the Multicultural Center at Bentley University. So you already got someone that does diversity day in and day out for a living, and obviously at a reputable institution like Bentley University. So you've got some of us that are on the committee that can bring you that expertise.
Great.
Because you never, you know, what I would do is start with, get some resumes and what we bring to the table. And when you see what we bring to the table, you won't have to go very far to figure out what you need to do to put a diversity person in that role.
I will tell you kind of a funny story. It was probably about a month and a half ago. The mayor and I were talking to somebody. We wanted somebody to come in and guide us through this whole process, you know, as like a 2-month consultant. As we started to talk to this person said, wait a minute, I might want to apply for this job. And I said, okay, well, clearly you're not then going to lead us through this process. So we've had a false start or two. We went down that road and then realized that road wasn't going to work. But we realized that we need people who are smarter than we are about this.
Okay. Thank you, Susan. Tracey?
Hi, yes, I just wanted to say that clearly, for the mayor and for everybody, you can see just tonight that it's a sensitive subject, but I just wanted to explain that, frankly, in terms of appropriateness, I find I wouldn't feel, and a lot of the community wouldn't feel, they would rather have the questions asked and the suggestions made from the whole committee as a whole, and wouldn't feel it appropriate to have individual members of the committee just contacting you to make recommendations, but rather would like to hear it for transparency's sake here and have it discussed, right? But I also want to say too that, but yeah, I understand you weren't being ambushed. This is the way. It's very open for people for them to bring in questions from the public and to ask you here. And it isn't a forum to like catch you, but it's like to make you aware and help you. And that's human relations, right? Help you see and hear and take that information and utilize it. And I also want to say, just in terms of Renee saying how she felt about Ricky Finlay, who I've worked with and I know, and whatnot, knows her, how she felt. I will just have to take that a step further for you to know. But I think it became clear that you weren't aware of, the incident and the repercussions of it, but not just even the Black community in Framingham was appalled by it. You had I don't even want to go by color, but a lot of people, especially people who tend to identify as white, who really have done a lot of work to with human relations, and just in terms of not trying to help break down racism and treat everybody equitably and equal.
I think she's frozen. Okay, we're gonna move on to a COSWA until Tracey comes back.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Sisitsky. I did want to say that I've heard a lot of good things about you from my friends and neighbors, and I'm looking forward to working with you. But one thing that I kind of want to know is, where do you see the Human Relations Committee fitting into your overall plans? Like, how do you see us working with you and your administration during the course of the year?
Well, I think just like other committees in the city, I think every committee has a role to play in services provided to the community. And I feel that every committee uh, has something valuable to offer, including your committee. And that's one of the reasons why I accepted your invitation to come, because I really came to listen, not to be grilled. And I want to hear what your committee has to say, and how you see your role in the community. And I'm doing that with a lot of other committees. I go to their Zoom meetings and I listen, and I hear input. And that's what I want to hear from you. I want you to tell me how you see your role. You're the ones that applied to be on this committee. You must have a reason why you're on the committee, and what you see your role is, and I want to hear about it.
Okay, Mayor Sisitsky, let me just say that formally, I don't want you to feel like you're being attacked.
Why shouldn't I feel that way?
We what we're asking you is, did you know when you formed the subcommittees what we're telling you now, and how
BB,
you
let me
learned
just
from
say
that?
something. I am not going to talk about Ricky Finley anymore
I'm not
tonight. I
discussing
want
Ricky
to do
Finley.
more
I'm not
productive work than that.
discussing Ricky Finley. What we're trying to say is, we've discussed this time and time again on this commission. It is very important for us to all be working together, meaning the city government, the commissions. We are invited to go and sit on other commissions and listen in at housing and things like that. And we are asking that we want to work with you. We want to work with you. We want to know if we fit into your plans for the year. Like, of course, it's asking, where do we fit into your administration? How do you see that? That's what we're asking. And I think the main thing from the discussion about any errors thus far is that we can avoid that if we all have a seat at the table. Does that make sense? What I'm saying? This isn't just
What I'm
about.
asking the committee is to give me some advice on what you see your role as. You obviously want to be on this committee. What do you hope to achieve by being a member of this committee? And what you think is important for the community?
I'll tell you what we have been doing. We have dealt with the issue you don't want to talk about. People have come in and sat down because we have a vision statement, and when members of the community are not behaving in a way or treating others in a way that doesn't fit with the city's vision for an inclusive and accepting Framingham for all, they have been invited to the table. There have been incidents with the football teams and racial text, and we've invited people in and had discussions. We had a Facebook page once upon a time where we would celebrate everyone. It'd be Hispanic Heritage Month. We did positive things also. We posted resources and things. We no longer have that Facebook. We were asked by administration not to have a Facebook, and that everything go through one city website so that it's on brand. So some of the things we used to do, we no longer do. So then we tried to shift it over to supporting the DEI officer, be it, being on the subcommittee for the Pride event and the planning. There was a reporting form for incidents, helping to filter that and to reach out to community groups to help with the issues. We have shifted quite a few times to make ourselves as helpful and as useful to the city as possible, be it, you know, promoting and assisting with a positive issue or assisting with remedying a negative issue. And that's what we did before your time here with us. And now that we don't have a DEI officer, we no longer have social media, and we have no longer have a connection, except tonight. Now we know Keziah, and thank you for that. We didn't know who we would connect with. We want to know where you see us fitting in, and not maybe you didn't know at first, and that's okay. We're just letting you know that we're here, and we're open to working with you on whatever it is that you need help with regards to human relations. As Renee said, Michael is very qualified to help you with the DEI search. We are more than welcome, more than happy to help with anything that you may need help with, be it a celebration, an end of year celebration. It could be a 4th of July celebration. It's all human relations, and we're interested in all of it, the positive and the negative. It's not to ambush you. We asked you that question because we weren't sure if you were aware before those transition committees were made what had happened.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
I apologize if you feel attacked. That wasn't the intent of this meeting. We want to know, we want to talk about human relations overall, the good and the bad, and how it is we're going to work together. Because
Yep.
the charter exists on its own. And we're going to have work to do, but none of us are going to get very much done effectively if we're not working together. Things like the Ricky Finlay incident slipped through the cracks. So that's why we invited you, to let you know we're here, and you can touch base with us, and we'd like to connect with you. We didn't know how to connect with you. We didn't know who we connect with anymore at all. So this is, hey, hi, I'm here, you're here. Let's see what we can do together. This is not an attack. And I apologize if you've felt that way. That was never our intention.
Can I just
Okay.
say, add to that, because my computer went out. That's what I was going to say, that the Racial Equity Subcommittee, we had parents and people telling their stories and asking questions. And I'm sure the superintendent sometimes felt, like a little defensive or whatever. But what came out of it was, he learned so much. We all melded. You build trust after the Ricky Finlay being appointed. And Mayor Sisitsky, I want to say, you know me, so please, and I have recommended and did a lot of work in helping to diversify the boards and committees in Framingham. So please reach out. And I think that probably the focus was on hurrying up and getting things moving, but the transition, that appointment of the transition team, like I said, that was a widespread, it kind of took away some of the hope, whatever. But the Human Relations Commission, again, well, I'm not on it, but I adjunct or whatever to it. We bring up these issues because that's how we all grow and grow together, right? What does it say? True friends tell you the truth, right? Like that. But it isn't, like I said, an attack, because if it was an attack, it wouldn't be said to you. You wouldn't be invited, and you wouldn't hear what people are saying. So in terms of transparency and openness, just look at it as, okay, they're giving me information, and you'll be back again, and you'll be talking regularly with them, and then change can occur, and people won't feel left out, like, well, who is he talking to? We don't know who he asked, because he didn't ask us. And you are not the first person by far that these same type of questions have been raised, and criticism or whatever has come forth about in an appointment or whatever before. We all get it. I've gotten things myself too. It always happens, right? But it would be good, and it would make people feel good to know that Human Relations, had your ear and definitely had input and a voice, a vote on, the DEI officer or DBIE officer, as Renee said, and all kinds of things, and not just them. People that are in the community, obviously things that will affect my district, I would too. And people asking questions, they expect them just the same way they expect me to ask questions at city council meetings. I may even already know the answer, but I do need to ask them anyway. And just to make sure that the same mistakes don't happen. Mistakes are going to happen. We all nobody knows everything, right? And grows together. And there's always new things that come up, because someone can email or call 5 minutes before the meeting and say, please, ask this question. All right. And let me know the response, or I'll watch it later. So yeah, this is just the fact that they invited you, I think, is a good sign. And the fact that they ask you these questions gives you the opportunity. It's a good way to improve grow your administration too, or the knowledge base of your administration. And I would say that I know that you know a lot of people. You've been in the city a long time, but if the people you asked or whatever, the public doesn't know as representatives of them, and if it didn't get the effect of what you were going for, if you really were going for diversity and trustworthiness, then again, please reach out to us so that we can, help you to choose before you make some of those kind of choices next time. But I do appreciate that that was just an interim committee. But this committee also has been, in terms of their intent, above reproach. I will say that.
We've dealt with a lot of ugly things in my time on the commission, and we want to have, like you said, you want an open and transparent government. We want to have open and transparent conversations because ultimately we need to bring the issues to you and to your administration. There's nothing that we can really do without you. So when Renee said that thing about Ricky, it's really, this is how the community felt. Who are you talking to ultimately? And did you know, did you not know? And what is the administration doing to grow? That question was asked by the community. What trainings is the new administration receiving now that we don't have a DEI officer, as she was in charge of that? So how are you going to make effective decisions without these trainings? Who are you consulting? And to also offer what we know, to offer the resources that we have. We're all pretty connected. We're all activists in some way and involved in different groups on different boards in the community. And we just want to offer ourselves and offer the commission to be of assistance. We may not know, but we'll go and find out. Most of us anyway. There is a lot here that you can take, and we're more than happy to be boots on the ground for you, so that that isn't hang over your head. Like, why did Charlie did that? I'm like, I don't think he knew. I don't think but we'll ask him, and let him know this is how the community felt. That's what that's about. It's not, oh, you. If it was, I wouldn't be here if I was against you. I quit and I'm gone. We want to know how to make this better, and we want to be a part of it, and we're offering our assistance, and we want to know if you see us as a part of that, and if you have yet decided where the commissions fit in to help you during your term. That's all.
Well, I think this is a start, a good start. Well, I don't know how good a start it is, but I think it's important that we're having this conversation. And I think we need to continue to have conversations on a regular basis. And whether we have a DEI officer in place or not, I think sometimes it's appropriate for you to hear directly from the mayor and not through intermediaries. And I'm open to that, and I'm willing to do that. But, I feel as though I've been attacked tonight, and I don't appreciate that, because I've come here in good faith and want to work with you and have a good discussion. And I feel that it wasn't reciprocal. And I think we need to do a restart. And I will continue to reach out to you and meet with you, but it's got to be respectful and civil. And that's the only way I'm going to operate.
Mayor, I have to take a little exception to that, because I answered your very first question. You said to me, what is it that you see for a role? And I spent a good 5 or 6 minutes talking to you about what I saw at DBIE. I talked to you about what that role would be, how we could make that role inclusive, what we should look for in someone in that role. So I think that there were some positive things that did come out of that conversation. Yes, I mentioned Rick Finlay, but I mentioned it as personally, I was just hurt. However, that wasn't the brunt of what I said. I talked about the fact that I'm here. I've been a 25+ year resident of Framingham. I love the city, wanted to grow, wanted to have the richness. And I talked about where we could take the DBIE officer to take it and make it that richness. So I do take a little bit of exception to the fact that we did talk some positiveness about where we could see that role, that I would love to have us being part in the interview process, love to give you some names. I know I said all of that when I spoke to you. So I did not attack you. So you may have felt that way, but I don't think that that's what it was. At least I don't think I did when I talked with you.
Well, commissioners, if I could interject for a second, let's use tonight as a team building exercise to work with the mayor, and he was nice enough to show up tonight, and Susan and Keziah. It's just, let's not rehash what happened in the past. We have an historic opportunity right now to basically rewrite what we can do on the commission, right? And
but Dana, and all due respect, Dana, if I have the mayor and he asked about DBIE, and I gave him, I think, a host of a lot of good things that could be in that office. However, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell him what folks that look like me are saying about some of the things that have already happened. He wants this to be an inclusive city. He wants to hear that. I didn't attack you in any way. All I did is tell you what I'm hearing in the word on the street. Now you can take it, you can move forward with it, but I'm gonna always tell you the truth, Mayor. Whoever sits in that seat, I love Framingham. I'm not going anywhere, and I want it to be the city that I know it can be. And so I would be remiss if I didn't tell you what many folks in the African-American community are saying. They are not feeling inclusive. They're not feeling that you've reached out to them. They are not feeling that. And I'd be remiss. I'm not attacking you. I'm just making a declarative statement. And I don't know how else to tell you what they're feeling if I don't say it that way. And so, Dana, I understand what you're saying about team building, but I'm telling you what people on the street are saying.
well,
And I want to work with our mayor. He's my mayor too. He's gonna be our mayor for the next 4 years. I want us to have kumbaya moments, but in order to have a kumbaya moment, I got to speak the truth. I got to speak truth to power. And that's just where I come from.
Excuse me, Michael, I just have to say this too, on behalf of the community. Now, Mayor Sisitsky called me right back on an issue I had in my district, right? So I have publicly, right, lauded you for that, right? But so you take the good and the bad, but this is really for you, Dana. And again, no disrespect, like you and all, right? And I know what you're trying to do. And again, you mean well, and that's nice, but sweeping it under the rug, you have to air it out. Otherwise, it's hurtful. It's like saying, well, you guys' feelings don't really matter. You're supposed to buck up and just keep going. You're supposed to ignore everything that, all the slights against you. But it's like, well, we have to overlook a lot. And nobody else is, but if you care, then you will hear me, right? And then we can move on. And I don't know whether it was the mayor or Ms. Blackman that said, and then we can all do better together, right? If you have a friend or anybody you deal with, even across a board table, but especially in relationships, right? And this is human relations, you need to be able to say when something hurt you or felt dismissive or felt like it kind of, could be a problem against you, or you're not seeing me, or you weren't valuing us, that kind of thing. Through this, unintentionally so. But when you bring up something, whether it's too personally or publicly, and then the person tries to sweep it under, even if they mean just to make peace, it can be hurtful. So I would say there may be different approaches, but acknowledge it, and then we move on.
And just to preface that, Dana, I said to the mayor, I said, I know that was not your intent. And you can go back and play the recording, because I know exactly what I said. I said, I know that was not your intent. You didn't intend to hurt me. You did not intend to harm me. But if someone steps on your toe and you don't say ouch, then they deserve to step on it a second time. And what I'm saying is, it hurt. I'm telling the mayor that he didn't intend to hurt me, but if I don't tell him, then he doesn't know. So the next time he does it again, it's going to happen again. Now he'll say, okay, wait a minute, maybe I need to touch base with a couple of folks before I move in that direction. So it becomes a learning. And I'm a full believer Dana, that you got to speak truth to power. And that's just me. And I don't, you know, it comes from being active on the NAACP. I sit on the executive board of the NAACP. That's just how we do business. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. But when you do something good, Mayor, I'm gonna be your champion. And I know you've done some good things. I'm gonna be your champion there too.
That's right.
So I'm gonna, you know, I'm not looking to tear you down. You're my mayor. You're gonna be there and you're gonna represent me for the next 4 years. So I want you to succeed, because if you succeed, we all succeed.
That's right.
So my intent is not to not make you succeed.
That's right.
And not to attack you and tear you down. That's counterproductive. That's immature. And that goes against everything that I've been brought up and been about. And I lead too many multiracial organizations for that to be the case.
So if I could,
let Michael say something.
Go ahead, Michael.
What's unique about this commission is that our job is to deal with the discomfort. Our job is to render the invisible visible. Our job is to make us have conversations that we are uncomfortable having. By definition, what that's going to do is put people at odds with each other. You asked earlier how we can be working most effectively together. A part of what is going to be required of that is understanding that's the role of this commission and encouraging us to engage in those difficult dialogues. As Renee mentioned, I do this for a living. As it pertains to diversity, equity, inclusion, I make mistakes all the time. And I get paid to do this, but I make mistakes around this work all the time because it's constantly changing, it's constantly evolving. We're constantly realizing there are communities that we've ignored that we have to start paying more attention to, right? And so when anyone in the administration, whoever becomes the DEI director, anyone in this administration, anyone in this commission, if someone is bringing a concern around an issue where you caused harm, right? And when I say you, I say you generally, where you caused harm, the response is to understand what you did to cause the harm and not repeat the mistake, right? It's not to try to shut the conversation down, because ultimately we can't grow as a community if we don't deal with really, really hard conversations, right? A part of what this commission is going to end up doing, you know, if we're invited to the building committee and we recognize there's a population that we are going to completely displace by moving forward with the project, it's this commission's job to slow that down, to make sure we're thinking about the people who we forgot. That's our job. So a part of what's difficult about this group is that in some ways, we're here to gum up the works, to make sure that we're serving our entire community, because there's a lot of different people here. I think it was Renee earlier who mentioned about contracts only being available in English, and that locks out a lot of our Portuguese speakers or Spanish speakers in our community, right? That's important. That's going to take a lot of work, right? To translate all those contracts correctly. Is it worth it to make an equitable community? Yes, but by definition, it's going to slow things down, but it's the right thing to do, right? And so for us to have the strongest working relationship that we can, a part of what we're going to need from you, Mr. Mayor, is to recognize that as a community, to be better, we have to deal with discomfort. We have to deal with our own mistakes. We have to be able to apologize when we miss something, because every single person in this room has missed something and will miss something again, right? And as the last thing, failing around issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion, saying the wrong thing, forgetting someone in a moment, failing is not the same thing as failure. Failure is giving up and abandoning the conversation, and that is what we can't do. If we don't fail, frankly, we're not doing anything right. We're going to fail, and that's okay, but we can't be failures at this work.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Michael. Again, Mayor Sisitsky, this is the commission that is going to bring you things that you'd rather not deal with, and we need your support. We need your support. So when we say something that you may not necessarily want to deal with, it's not an attack on you. It's the community is pissed off. This is what's happening. They want to know what you're going to do in the future. How do they have faith in you going forward? Bob has had to pull out a gavel and mediate a very difficult conversation regarding racism right there in the executive conference room. The work we do is not always pretty, and some of us would rather avoid the ugly work. But if we do that, if we ignore emails that come in from the community and we tell them, well, oh, I don't really want to touch that because it could get ugly and things like that, we're not doing our job. And while we're trying to do our job, we need to report to you ultimately, be it through Kez or the DEI officer. Eventually it needs to make it up to you, because it's you who's going to make that change. We can't walk it alone. No one of us is going to be able to do it alone. We're going to keep making unnecessary mistakes. Like Michael said, we're going to fail, and we're going to get up and we're going to fix it, and we're going to keep going. But if we're all failing in our own little corner, then, what's the point? As Ellie used to say, I miss her. So yeah, that, Dana, why is your,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, it's not to attack you, it's to bring things from the community to, directly to the man himself. Like you said, we should have access to you, and this is us having us coming to you and saying, this is all what goes on here, and we can be helpful to you, and we're also going to need your help too, serving the community,
Okay, I heard you.
because ultimately we're one team. We have to be. We can't.
Yep.
We'll just keep making the unnecessary mistakes.
And we also need dedicated commissioners to show up at every meeting. Last month we had Bob, myself, and you and Marcia, I believe. And we
I
need
understand that,
to,
Dana, but this meeting is going to be for the mayor only. We're going to discuss
yep,
our membership and things like that, and our officers and stuff at April's
yep,
meeting, if you don't mind, just because
good,
it's already 8:17. So we're going to
yep.
give the mayor some time to speak, to say anything that he'd like to say, to take any questions from the public, and we're going to close this meeting out.
Before you do that, BB, Renard had his hand up, and Keza had her hand up. So
Okay.
could we just deal with those two first?
Yep.
Hi guys. No, I just want to add, I had the opportunity to work with Kezia already in City Hall. She's amazing, and I'm very excited because she's gonna be amazing what she does, and we're gonna be able to count on her. Everything related to the community, she'll be able to help us. So I'm very excited about that. I just want to give that update because I was able to go to an event with her and the mayor. It was great, and I think we're gonna keep doing that. And it's a great opportunity to have her in helping us. So I just want to say how great she is. Thank you.
Totally agree, Hanan.
Thank you. That was a sweet surprise. I'll try to be brief because my toddler is screaming, as I said in the beginning. So two things. There you go. So two things that you guys had touched upon in the beginning of the meeting. So one of them was the administrative side that you guys were saying like needed more support. I completely agree. Like what I said was that since I started, I've been kind of just overlooking all of the board and the commissions, and it's a lot. It's a lot. And one of the things that I know tech services is trying to do is get a system. And you guys might know this, and if you do, you can tell me, because I think they were working on it since Ala was here. But it's a system that will help all the boards and commissions and kind of administrate. You could kind of do administrative work through that system. So hopefully that will help all of us. And then the other part of it too is, and I will be reaching out to you guys. So Renan and I, we actually were talking, and we've talked to the mayor, and Susan is about doing some sort of like 820, like toddler should not be deciphered. Doing some sort of like multicultural resource fair. And it's good to come in here and kind of hear what you guys do and know that you guys would be able to kind of support us in doing something like that. So I will reach out to you all, but that is something that I really want to work on. And I'm happy to hear everything that you guys are doing. I know that these conversations are not easy. I used to work in the Office of Equity for Framingham Public Schools, and this was something that we always had to do. But as you said, we just want to make more room at the table. So, and this is how we do it. So I'm happy to be here and be kind of the liaison for you guys. So I will pass it along. I think you were going to pass
We're
it
looking
back.
forward to working with you.
Yes, thank you,
Um,
Desire. Nice to meet you.
Mr. Mayor, one quick thing. I just want to let you know, I don't know if you've been looking at the chat, Mr. Mayor, but there was an ugly statement that was already put in the chat about us tonight. And I would be remiss, and this is why, again, I told you I'm gonna tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. Frank Wood, who is on the call, has written a note here saying, you and your friends will be the next FU video stars. You're gonna love the way we make you look. This is what we're dealing with here in Framingham, Mayor. Now that is ugly, ugly, ugly. There's no other way to put it. And I'd be remiss if, and I'll let you can read it right there for yourself in the chat. So when we say some things to you, we want you to understand that we are being attacked. Nobody should ever write anything like that, Mayor.
Renee, you're absolutely right. That's totally inappropriate. I hesitate to even tell you what some websites say about me, because it would make you throw up if you saw that. And I wouldn't even tell my family about some of the things that I've seen on websites pertaining to me. So it's out there. There's no question there's hate out there, and we need to work together to get rid of it. But it's not going to be easy.
Oh, no.
And we can't do it alone. We're gonna have to
And
do
we're
it together,
here.
and we're gonna have to bring these things to you. So I want you to get comfortable and don't be afraid to make a mistake, like Michael said. We don't always know what to do, and sometimes we've had to not answer for sake of not having anyone to bring it to during the transition. You know, before Kez got here, after Maritza left, as you transitioned in, you know, we reach out to you in the ways that we can and not directly to you. And, you know, I can say this personally, you know, through other groups, and been told, well, you got to wait. He's pretty busy right now, you know, with things that are important. We need to know that when people come to us, when they email us, when they call us, when we're in the street and we're in our churches and people bring an issue to you, that we can come to you and say, hey, Mayor Charlie, how are we going to fix this? And we want you to know we want to do that. And we want to be able to tell you everything, like, look, man, did you know blah 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 blah, because this is what they're saying, you know, this is the type of relationship we want to have and we need to have with you to do this work. We get the ugly stuff. Unfortunately, we want to do nice things, we want to put on events, we want funding, we want to be part of celebrations and things like that. They have not happened yet with COVID and all these transitions. We just invited you here to say we're here, this is what's happening, and we'd like to work with you, and we hope you want to work with us.
Okay.
Need to be
Thank
part
you
of
for that.
governing.
And go ahead, Tracey.
I was just gonna say, yes, they need to, we need to, we all want to expand so that everyone feels included in ownership of Framingham and governing. No one person can know everything, but the more that we undergird you, and what we know, we share. What they know, they share. What anybody knows, we're going to share it with the leaders and everyone we can, and that's how we grow. And that's how we merge, right? Become that fabric that Framingham needs. So you don't have to know everything already or anything like that, right? None of us do. We're all going to learn together.
Right on.
And human relations is a great foundation to start with. They're so diverse.
Right on.
So let me just end it by saying that it's been an eye-opening conversation tonight. We spent an hour and a half discussing the issues. I think it was open and frank, and we both had an opportunity to put our feelings out there. And I just want you to know that I respect what you are trying to do, and I want to work with you. And I would hope that even in the absence of having a DEI officer on board, that you would continue to reach out to my office whenever any issues come up, and we will respond as quickly and as efficiently as we possibly can. And I appreciate the opportunity to meet with you tonight. And as I said, I hope it's definitely not going to be the last meeting we have. I want to talk to you on a regular basis, whether as a committee or as individuals. I have an open door policy. Tracey, you know that, and I've welcomed you into the office and talked to you on the phone, and always available to listen and get advice. And what I'd like to do is end the meeting on a high note. And thank you all for your service to the community, your service to the commission. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you in the future and continue this conversation. So thank you, and I'm going to say good night.
Thank you,
Mr.
thank
Mayor.
you, Mayor. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much,
Susan.
Mayor. And thank you to your staff that came. Susan, you're quietly sitting over there, but we want to thank you as well. We know you're the wing beneath his, you're the hand there holding up his hands there.
The
So we
wind
want to
beneath
thank
his
you.
wings.
Yes, thank you very much,
All of
Susan.
the above, yes. Good night, everybody. Good
Good
to see
night.
you all. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, Rena.